The Muskogee Indians called it the good land. Their word for it was Alabama. A good land for growing, be it cotton or camellias. A busy industrial land these days. A land that some feel invented a game played on autumn afternoons. A land that the Lord endowed with some of the best fishing spots on his green earth. And these days, thanks to some enterprising souls in a lovely hamlet named Talladega, Alabama is taking its place as the new home of the greatest spectacle in sport when they race at Alabama International Motor Speedway. When future historians write about the wonders of the world, save at least one chapter for this. The world's fastest motor speedway, the Alabama International Motor Speedway here at Talladega, Alabama. Not only the world's fastest, but perhaps the world's safest. More important to the thousands that have come here to see the great racing classics. The most competitive track ever constructed. A special track from every standpoint. This awesome facility, built where cotton once grew, stands out in this sparsely populated area like a pyramid in the desert, a monument to the man who built it, Bill France. A 2.6-mile tri-oval capable of testing the ultimate limits of man and motor vehicle. The 5-story tall 33-degree bank turns allow a car to hurtle into new frontiers, bridled only by the courage of the driver in control. A 4,000-foot backstretch, where speed and courage becomes a colorful collage at 200 miles per hour. There is no backing off, no compromising, no easy way, no speed limit.
This fast. It's the fastest racetrack we've got.
It's the fastest racetrack in the world, and as far as I'm concerned, racing is a game of speed, and I guess that's really the reason I like to run a place like Talladega.
The race itself is a spectacle. Just being here and being a part of it is it's a thrill. And
to me, it's a great racetrack. It's a good test of machinery and a good test of driving.
It's an experience of a lifetime.
For some, the challenge of this track is a solitary one. The world closed course record belongs here in Alabama. One lap round the oval faster than anyone's ever dared before. For America's quiet, courageous Mark Donohue, it would be one of the most serious challenges in his famous career. Buddy Baker first brought the world closed course mark to Alabama with a lap of 200 miles per hour in a stock car in 1970. 1 year later, Catawba, North Carolina's Bobby Isaac in a similar car crested 201 miles per hour. In 1974, A.J. Foyt bombarded the high banks, blitzkrieging the record by 16 miles per hour. Foyt averaging over 217 miles per hour for one lap in his own car. Is Donohue concerned about eclipsing the Foyt mark?
Well, certainly. We now have to warm up and then do the job. It's been a lot of work up to this point, and a lot of people are looking for us to be successful, and yet it has to be done. I can tell for sure it's not easy.
A $175,000 car throbs to life, and an Earth astronaut seeks out his own horizons. Car owner Roger Penske considers the task.
You're running at such tremendous speeds, and the difference between 217, which is Foyt's record, and 220, which we're shooting for, is 0.2 of a second, and in 2.6 miles, that's not very much.
Event one of a typical Talladega 500 weekend. A world speed record run by Mark Donohue.
As you approach the turn, you and your sense of the car feel that the car will not be capable of making the turn that you can see ahead. You tend to lift on the throttle, and you have to tell yourself, it's going to make the turn, I can keep the throttle down. And so far, I've not been able to keep it down all the way, but I think we're getting closer. It's very light, it's very fragile, it's very sensitive to steering wheel movements, and consequently at those speeds, on this kind of a banking, why, it's, you would say, very, very darty.
Donohue at over 215 miles per hour.
Turn two is the worst part. the bank angle tends to level out before the turn does, and so that the wind catches the front of the car and you could say sort of pushes it across the track towards the wall.
Darting, dodging the most difficult obstacles, the unseen, the unknown. Mark Donohue established a new world record mark at Alabama, 221.160 miles per hour. To motor racing's grand champion, A.J. Foyt, it didn't represent a record as much as an invitation to again test himself against this track.
And I'm quite sure that I can come back and at least run around 230 miles an hour, which we will probably do. I don't know if it'll be in the near future or later on, but we definitely will come back.
But this moment was Mark Donohue's.
How was it out there? Well, we've worked a long time to get to this point, and it's really it's a great thrill to have this kind of a record in the Penske racing team. I'm really, really happy.
From the sublime to event number 2. That's right. A tractor trailer high-balling hopefully fast enough to stay up on the banking and set a mark that will be the talk of truck stops from Bangor, Maine to San Diego. Anniston, Alabama's Johnny Ray had this jumbo jogging at 92 miles per hour. And they say the party going on in the back end was even faster. Talladega Speedway is more than a race facility. It's a year-round proving grounds. It's a development center for Can-Am motorcycles. The Canadian corporation selected Alabama because of its willing and ready labor market and a climate conducive to year-round research. But this weekend, the 4-mile road course is testing the abilities of the International Motorsports Association competitors. With their compact cars on street tires and small engines, they create big excitement for spectator and participant alike. Every type of track condition, from flat-out superspeedway to twisting road course, is interwoven in this facet of Talladega racing. And some competitors get to see more of it than others. Rain or shine at Talladega, road racing goes on. Here's the start of big sports car competition. Corvettes, $20,000 Porsches, raising rooster tails as they ramble over the 12-turn course. This track is considered such a good facility that when the pride of German motor car workmanship, the factory BMW team, represented here by car 25, driven by eventual winner West Germany's Hans Stuck, set up their American headquarters, they selected Alabama. For here they found a track that approximated every demand their cars could face in its challenging straightaways, its elevations, its subtle switchbacks. But the magnetic attraction of an Alabama race weekend is NASCAR Winston Cup Grand National Racing. Campers from 40 states are here to highlight a vacation, local folks to take a day off for a family spree. Everyone out to have a good time that will be climaxed by what they know will be the most competitive automobile racing in the world. The night before a major race is a night for socializing, whether it's in the family campers in the infield or at the governor's mansion. Dignitaries and corporate executives from around the world gather at Governor Wallace's residence to honor the race weekend's Grand Marshal, Argentina's 5-time world champion Juan Fangio. The talk, politics, football, Alabama's beautiful weather, all take second place tonight to something totally unique in the world of sport. Super speedway racing, Alabama style. Throughout the night, thousands travel hundreds of miles to be where the eyes of the nation will be galvanized on a race day, attracted by the superstars of the game competing at their fastest. A racing fan knows no matter what the vantage point at Alabama Motor Speedway, it's a good one. The gigantic 315-acre infield, large enough to hold 31 Rose Bowls, grandstands and all. 2 million cubic yards of dirt were moved to construct this 48-foot wide track over which 50 of the world's premier race drivers will climax a typical Talladega weekend.
This is a different racetrack. It's different than anywhere in the world. It's a kind of a racetrack that There's really nothing but speed here.
The drafting is a big part of winning here.
The draft takes effect here. You know, you can come from 20 car lengths back and just suck right up on the bumper, and if you got a car even 10 mile an hour slower, you can go out front and lead the race.
If your car's anywhere near capable of going around a racetrack good by itself, in a draft you can just fly.
You can't describe it. You got to get in and take a ride.
There are few sensations for a spectator that match the moment when a field of racing cars are about to be turned loose. At Talladega, one feels the vibration of the most powerful congregation of racing cars on any track in the world as they pick up momentum and prepare for an onslaught upon 500 miles of competition. This begins a 4-hour concentration contest. Concentration where an error is not a 10-yard penalty or a mark on a scoreboard. Here, where they cover a football field in less than a second, errors can be far more costly. You're watching number 15, Buddy Baker, scream into the lead. Once he said, "Yes, I'm concerned about what happens to me in a race. I'd be a fool not to be concerned." But every day I see people living their lives never doing what they want. And you know, when they drop that green flag, I'm doing exactly what I want. At 190 miles per hour, Alabama's Donnie Allison, car 28, challenges Baker for the lead. How does a driver relate to all of this? Cale Yarborough tells us about turn 1.
You're running well over 200 miles an hour when you pass the start-finish line, and it's just like driving off into a very deep canyon.
Darrell Waltrip, the subject, the backstretch.
You're sitting there in a 3,700-pound stock car running 200 miles an hour with 500 plus horsepower, and there are about 20 other cars all around you like bumblebees, and you're just sitting there in a state of shock almost.
Richard Brooks on the trioval.
Well, the trioval here is not think near as much as it is at Daytona. And your car tends to get a little bit looser here. You know, you'll be behind the car, and just all of a sudden you'll just turn sideways and maybe smoke one rear tire, or sometimes I've seen him smoke both of them. I've seen Bobby Allison out here last year, and he just laid a haze all the way through the turn off of both rear tires, and that's pretty impressive at 200 miles an hour.
Cale on turn 3.
The banks are very high here, and it's just like driving into a wall when you enter that turn at 200 miles an hour.
Daytona winner Benny Parsons gives us the perspective in turn 4.
The only problem is coming off 4, the wall kind of like jumps out in front of you.
A game of concentration where brave men, knowing what the dues are, willingly say, "For me, this is worth it. I'm willing to risk it all for this game in which I believe." As Buddy Baker's car 15 takes the lead from number 88, Darrell Waltrip. A 190-mile-per-hour crash tears apart 6 automobiles in the backstretch. In slow motion, you're witnessing some of the finest race drivers there are in trouble. The point here is that even if the best of drivers can have this happen when all conditions are in their favor, who are we, the everyday drivers, to think we can give anything less than complete attention on highways over which we have no control on conditions? On the backstretch, Benny Parsons.
You got a couple of cars in front of you and 2 or 3 behind you and maybe 1 beside of you. You have to be careful that you don't make a move that's going to hit another car and get everybody going sideways down the backstretch.
resumes, one might wonder what it's like out there for a driver. If on a hot summer day you'd roll up your car's windows, turn the heater on high, and then drive in rush hour, bumper-to-bumper traffic for 4 hours, you'd get an approximation of the feeling a race driver gets in one of these events. Of course, you'd be missing a thing or two, like 190 mile per hour plus speed, or the gentle ping of someone nudging your rear bumper at full flight. Donnie Allison, car 28, regaining the lead from Darrell Waltrip. Lead changes tell the story as to why this kind of racing on this track provides spectators with the ultimate in competition. Other forms of motorsport usually see 3, perhaps 15 lead changes in a similar distance race. This track has a record of 64 official lead changes. Now, an official lead change is counted only at the finish line. There's no tabulating lead changes as they swap back and forth around the track. Naturally, this kind of competition takes its toll. Blown engines turn racers into pedestrians, even among giants like Waltrip, like Cale Yarborough, and David Pearson. Sadly, too, it shortens the day for their determined crews. Nearing the midpoint, part of racing's Alabama gang runs first and second. Bobby Allison, number 16, the master, leads his 26-year-old protege, Neil Bonnet, number 12, by less than a car length. But on the backstretch, Richard Brooks rides one down hard. As safety crews move to the tattered remains of another race car, we see in slow motion what happens when a 3,700-pound automobile hurtles out of control at 190 miles per hour. Everything in the car broken from that wrenching series of vicious sidewinder rolls except for the mandatory roll cage to protect the driver. Unbelievably, Richard Brooks, after washing off the Alabama red clay, was back in the pits regaling crewmen with the ride of his life story. And the next day, he played 18 holes of golf. Donnie Allison has appropriated first position, but he's running by himself. And closing ground are 3 cars in tandem. Now, they're in a draft, and they'll easily overhaul the lonesome leader on this track of subtleties. One goes so fast, so easily here, that it's easy for observers to forget how difficult it is for a competitor to be totally in control. A driver must be aware of where the other cars are in relation to his efforts. At the second turn, he must remember the banking falls off while the curve continues for several hundred feet. In each lap, every straightaway, he must check the engine's RPMs. Fuel situation, a major priority in his thinking. His ears are filled with messages on the radio-controlled headset as to conditions, problems facing him related by the crew chief. When an engine blows, a driver has less than a second to decide on which way you crank the steering wheel, when you lock down the brakes, and where hopefully you'll park the thing. A disaster for one is a savior for others. A caution period in a race is the only timeout, the only recess an active competitor gets from his 190-mile-per-hour chest. width of the track, the relative ease in which one can corner, they actually create problems for a competitor at Talladega. He can't get away from his adversaries. As fast as he goes, he's still surrounded. He's always in heavy traffic with no margin for error. Only here at Talladega does one see a sight like this in a charge for first place. One of the secrets to the success of NASCAR Winston Cup Grand National Racing is that for those in the crowd, there's a relationship between what they left in the parking lot and what they see on the track. A Ford going into the lead, a Chevrolet second, a Matador third, and Richard Petty's Dodge is fourth. As the laps run out, the ranks of the Alabama gang are depleted. First, Neil Bonnet, car 12. Then Bobby Allison's car 16 add to the attrition rate. As they begin to shake down for the finish, Donnie Allison's car 28 leads Buddy Baker's number 15, with Richard Petty's number 43 lurking in third. Then Petty begins the strike. Final caution when Joe Mihalik detonates an engine, gives the trio a last respite on pit road before the all-out assault on the checkers. As the race resumes, Donnie Allison has been stymied by a cut tire. He comes up to speed behind the decision makers. Buddy Baker's Ford, Richard Petty's Dodge will decide the $165,000 showdown in a Talladega weekend. The white flag, 60 official lead changes among 17 drivers. Richard Petty seeking to make it 61. Half a lap to go. Baker still deployed in first, the persistent Petty second, then Petty starts to reel Baker in. At turn 4, Petty sets up the slingshot by Baker for the finish. But Baker refuses to be intimidated by the master, forces Petty out of the throttle. Buddy Baker, the winner. Tomorrow, national, international wire services, radio, newspaper, television will tell the world of this weekend's exploits at this, the fastest track. They'll relate how this man cranked out competitive laps at 196 plus miles per hour. And 70,000 people will return home to tell the neighbors how they saw Buddy Baker stymie Richard Petty at the finish line to climax a typical Talladega weekend.